Next, two rucksacks packed with explosives recovered next to the pipeline which takes oil to Hungary. The Turk Stream pipeline appears to have been the actual target. The find was made on Serbian soil, and Belgrade says this could have caused serious damage to the pipeline as well as killing people. President Alexander Vučić praised his intelligence services for the find, but in Budapest, the Hungarian opposition leader Peter Magyar says that he suspects this is a false flag operation to try to sway the Hungarian election on April the 12th towards his rival Viktor Orban. While both Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orban and a Kremlin spokesperson confirmed they do not have enough facts to lay blame, both appear convinced it was an attempt by Kyiv, Ukraine, to sabotage an important gas route between the two countries. But Kyiv and Hungary's opposition think that the timing, 1 week away from the national election, is suspect, to say the least. And Serbia, too, seems to suspect the manipulation of facts. Here at France 24, Eliza Herbert with this.
Presenting to the press in front of the pipeline in question, the Hungarian Prime Minister once again implied who he thought was behind an alleged attempt to blow it up.
I would not further damage Ukrainian-Hungarian relations by accusing any country, say Ukraine, without knowing the facts. So I would not do this until we have the facts. I will not do this. However, it is undoubtedly true that what we are experiencing here now fits into a series of events, since the Ukrainians have such an ability and are willing and able to do something like this.
Two backpacks with powerful explosives were found near the pipeline on Sunday in Serbia, close to its border with Hungary. Both countries are still heavily reliant on Russian gas, and the Turk Stream pipeline is the main thoroughfare through which it travels. A Kremlin spokesperson also pointed the finger at Kyiv.
It can be assumed with a high degree of probability that traces of interference by the Kyiv regime will also be found this time.
However, the timing of the discovery has raised some eyebrows. Hungary's national election is on Sunday, and Viktor Orban is trailing in the polls. Speculations have spread of ways Moscow might try to keep the Russia-friendly leader in power. Opposition leader Peter Magyar suggested this was their act.
Many people have suggested that something might accidentally happen in Serbia, possibly involving a gas pipeline around Easter 1 week before the Hungarian elections. And now it has.
Kyiv, for its part, categorically rejected what it called attempts to falsely link Ukraine to the incident, and said it was probably a false flag operation as part of Moscow's heavy interference in Hungarian elections. Ones which could unseat Orban for the first time in 16 years.
Let's try and shed more light on this story. Dr. Mark Roscoe-Lusto joins us, affiliate fellow at the Central European University in Budapest. Thank you, Dr. Mark, for joining us here. First, the Druzhba pipeline, now the Turk Stream one. It seems that energy is a real key issue in this upcoming election.
Absolutely. Certainly this event, this incident, as your report mentioned, does bear all the hallmarks of a Russian false flag operation. Serbia is a well-known client state of Russia. So again, it makes complete sense that the government led by Alexander Vučić would be involved in this somehow. And the fake sabotage playbook is well known, going back more than 15 years to Georgia in 2008 and then eastern Ukraine in 2014, where Russian state operatives planted explosive devices and did almost exactly the same thing that we're seeing here, sabotaging infrastructure to foment unrest. So really the onus now is on the EU, is on the European Union, and also the international media to avoid jumping to conclusions and to wait for the facts to be uncovered. The EU should absolutely call for an independent investigation. Right now, the investigation is being handled by Serbian authorities, and I don't think that's very wise to leave it to a client state of Russia to figure out exactly what happened here. And then the next step in the false flag playbook would be, as we again saw in the video coming from Viktor Orban, would be to blame Ukraine. And certainly Hungary has been setting the stage for this kind of rhetoric by blaming Ukraine for delaying repairs to the Druzhba pipeline, as you mentioned. But really, it's up to the EU and the international media to avoid giving any credence to unfounded accusations about Ukrainian involvement.
So, Dr. Mark, is this saying to you that Viktor Orban is genuinely concerned that he will not win this election? And does it also say to you that Moscow is concerned that its man, Viktor Orban, will not win?
I think and next to Viktor Orban, the person who stands to lose the most in case of a Fidesz loss, and Fidesz is Viktor Orban's political party, is Vladimir Putin. Certainly, Russia stands to lose the most with a change in power coming in Hungary, because Hungary has been Russia's key ally in the EU. And I would go even further than saying an ally. Viktor Orban is Vladimir Putin's secret agent within the EU, and we've seen evidence of Viktor Orban being in regular contact with high-level Russian officials through Hungary's foreign minister, relaying top secret information to Russian officials. So it's absolutely clear to me that not only is Viktor Orban nervous, but Vladimir Putin is absolutely nervous. And it's not at all clear to me that this incident has actually helped Viktor Orban. There are 6 days until the election. Polls show that most Hungarians have already made up their minds about who to vote for. Maybe a month ago, this kind of false flag operation would have swayed some undecided voters. But at this point, people have heard so much and they've seen so much, and the campaign rhetoric has been at such a high pitch for so long here in Hungary that it's not clear to me that this is really going to make a difference.
So in terms of what happens when this election comes about, you're saying that the incident on the Turk Stream pipeline may not sway things? Is that what you're really saying to us?
It seems that way to me. Really, at this point, Hungarians have been so battered by the economic downturn that Hungary's been suffering for the last 10 years, really under Viktor Orban's regime. And the middle class in Hungary has been suffering the most. And how Peter Magyar has managed to keep his lead has been by hammering on these domestic issues, specifically around affordability, cost of living, healthcare, public services. And so it doesn't seem to me that this will sway voters, because to this point, Viktor Orban has been trying to sway them using foreign policy arguments, and it really hasn't worked.
Dr. Mark Roscoe-Lusto, affiliate fellow at Central European University in Budapest. Thank you so very much indeed for this analysis. Clearly, the investigation regarding the rucksacks left by the Turk Stream pipeline in Serbia continues, but your analysis of what it means on a wider scale, certainly with the Hungarian election coming up, is definitely food for thought. And thank you very much indeed for giving us that briefing, Dr. Mark Roscoe-Lusto from the Central European University in Budapest. We, of course, continue to follow the Hungarian election campaign, and of course on the day we'll be reporting to you live from Budapest on all developments there. Viktor Orban trailing Peter Magyar in the polls at the moment, but it is tight, and an incident like this perhaps could have some kind of influence, though our guest trying to talk down, certainly from his perspective, what effect he thinks it will have. Most Hungarians, he says, have already made up their minds.